You know how it works?
I think so. Former State Senator Denny Jacobs, an outspoken individual and the godfather of riverboat gambling in Illinois, stops by the Daily Herald to sit on the futon and answer some questions about ethics. Mr. Jacobs, Senator Jacobs, thanks for joining us.
John, it's a pleasure to be here, as always. You've always done a very good job of representing your paper in your area, and you are a very ethical person, so that's one of the reasons I'm glad to be on your program.
Well, let's jump right into it. Ethics reform, do we need it?
What is it? That's a better question. What is ethics reform? Which really then brings around the question, do we need it? And I think the answer to that is no. There's a group of people, mainly newspapers, that want that. They want the Freedom of Information Act to be changed and the ethics, and that's all they care about. They're not even interested in the fact that we have a hell of a budget deficit, that we're not paying our pensions. All of those things take back burner to ethics and to the FOIA. And the sad part with that is that our ethics law that we have on the books work. That's the whole issue. It's all about disclosure. They have good disclosure. If you don't disclose, they find a living out of you. And on top of the disclosure portion, they have the ability to know actually whether you're almost how you receive your money on a day-to-day basis. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are those that will argue that money is speech, and we can make that argument. Now, the other side will say, yeah, but if you have more money, you have more speech. Yeah, that's true, but life isn't fair, and you always have some advantages one way or another.
You've often, when you were in the state senate, you were often a critic, perhaps, of the power that the legislative leaders have and how they control the whole process. What do you think should be done to change that?
That's an interesting question. I think that change actually should come internally. It should come from the body membership itself that says, hey, you're not going to owe me, you're not going to give me. Well, as an example, my state representative, according to all reports, received $400 and some thousand from Mike Madigan in the last election. And so that does raise the question, who does own him? And he's able to say, hey, I didn't receive any money, I didn't take any money from this group, from that group, from this group, from that group. You know why? Because it's all hidden under the Leadership Act. So it gives, in my estimation, candidates who don't want to expose where all their money comes from or how they get their money, it allows them a little cloak to hide behind.
You once tried to go to, or you once held a fundraiser in Springfield specifically to challenge the credibility of an ethics law. What was the lesson you learned from that?
Well, that was a lesson to be learned that the finding at the time came from a Chicago Circuit Court and therefore did not necessarily carry full weight throughout the state. And so what we did was to go to the Supreme Court, to ask the Supreme Court to set that law aside. We gave some arguments. We were unfortunate that we never had an opportunity to have a final hearing and to have the Supreme Court hear it because, quote unquote, again, this is the law, so you have to follow it, I did not have cause. I was not hurt. I had not been harmed. I had not lost an election, or I did not receive certain funds because this law was in effect. So therefore, because I didn't have standing, they threw the case out. That's unfortunate because I think that would have been interesting to see what the judges, who basically live under that same rule, would have had to say about the ethics law of Illinois.
So what do you think is the lesson from Rod Blagojevich?
That everything works, that the system works. That you've got a gentleman here who broke the law. And that's what these guys do, is they break the law. We've got George Ryan, who broke the law. We got Blagojevich, who evidently or purportedly has broken the law. And the law will get them. And for them as an example, Mike Collins to come down and say that he was treated rudely because his stuff didn't pass. Well, you know, a lot of bills down here don't pass. And you know what? Thank God. Because there's a lot of them that aren't worth the paper they're written on, but somebody asked for it, so they get it. I just wish, if in fact there was this mass yell, if you will, for ethics legislation was out there and it was permeating as the #1 issue, you know, it might be a different story, but it's not. Anybody that's done any polling will see that actually ethics, whenever you compare it with education, with jobs, with you know, taking care of family needs, even below gay marriages, you will find ethics in the Illinois polling. So it's something that, strangely enough, grabs the legislatures or the legislators' attention because they don't want to get the bad editorials. Where if they had any guts, they would tell many of those newspapers that are soon to be going out of business or reported to be in bankruptcy that we're not going to listen to you. You're only one person, and hell, evidently you don't even know how to run your own business. So, you know, who are they to say that we need all this quote-unquote ethics reform?
And with that, I think you've answered most of my questions pretty honestly, Senator Jacobs. I thank you for coming in and sitting on the futon for a few minutes.
It's always my pleasure. You know that.
Thanks a lot.
Alrighty.